Hello! In this tutorial I want to show you how you can use shapes in 3D Studio Max to create 3D geometry quickly. Basically, these shapes are just lines in your viewport. If you render the view, you won't see anything at all. They're not real 3D geometry, but you can turn them into 3D geometry using compound objects or modifiers, and I will go through some of them in this tutorial. Let me first of all show you how I created this shape. In the back, this is just a simple arc, and this is just a line with a few points. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. This one looks a little bit more complex, but is also based on a very simple shape. Let me switch to the top viewport and show you how I created this. It all started as a star. So I went to Create, Shapes, Star. I dragged the star into the viewport. And then I right-clicked on the star, Convert to Editable Spline, went to Vertex Submode, and selected all the vertices inside the star. So the 6 inner vertices of the star. Hold down the Control key to select multiple vertices. And then I went over here to the Spline properties to chamfer, and I pushed up the chamfer value, and that splits the vertices and inserts a straight line between them. And then I selected the outer 6 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and also chamfer them. You could add a fillet to create another nice effect. I chose to chamfer them as well, and that gave me this shape. Simplest way of converting this shape into 3D geometry is to add an Extrude modifier. So let's do that right now. Select the shape, go to Modify, and from the modifier list pull down, select Extrude. As soon as you push up the amount, you will see that it turns into a solid 3D object, and this could already be used for a gear, for example, but there's not much you can really do with the Extrude modifier. So let me show you another way. Let's delete that, right-click, delete, and add another modifier, in this case a bevel. Basically, bevel looks like Extrude, but it has some more layers. It has level 1, level 2, and level 3. Let's first go to level 1. For each level, you can change the outline, the size of the outline. And this can be used, for example, to quickly create pillars. Let me just adjust some values here, like this. And then move this up and up again. And already you have very quickly created a pillar for some kind of cathedral or something like that. Let me give you another variation. Perhaps like this. And you can also, if you want to smoothen the transition from one angle to the next, click on curved sides, and the magic happens if you increase the segments here. And then you get very interesting smooth shapes. This might be used perhaps for a tree or something like that. Let your imagination go wild. That's the bevel modifier. Let's delete that as well. And let's come to another modifier, the Bevel Profile modifier. Let's apply that, Bevel Profile. This will also extrude the spline, however, it will add a profile from another path. And in this case, I created a spline, a simple spline, and this will be the outline for the profile. So click on Pick Profile and select this shape, and you can see that your object is now beveled using the profile that you have created. The nice thing about this method is if you go to the top level of Max and select the shape and go to the modifier of that shape and select vertices, you can in fact change the profile at runtime and the object will adjust accordingly. One more tip here. If you have created the profile and you apply the Bevel Profile modifier and somehow it seems to be the wrong way around or inverted in some way, that is because the spline is used the wrong way around. Let me show you what I mean. Each spline has vertices, and these vertices are numbered. You can show these numbers by clicking on Show Vertex Numbers. So my spline starts down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the Bevel Profile modifier always starts at 1 and moves upwards. So perhaps your spline is just the wrong way around. If you want to change that, very simply click on the spline with the right mouse button and choose Reverse Spline. That makes the last vertex the first. In this case, this doesn't make much sense because then my object gets cut off because the profile gets too small. So let me reverse that again. But just as a little tip, you can reverse the order of the vertices very simply. Okay, let's delete this modifier as well. What else can I show you? Let me delete this. Yes, the Loft object. Lofting means that you extrude a shape along a path. Back here I created a simple arc and I want to extrude this shape along the arc. Before we do that, let me just copy this shape by holding down the Shift key and moving it to the side. And now we have a copy of that object. Select the path and go to Create, Geometry, and switch from Standard Primitives to Compound Objects. And there you will find the Loft compound object. And we have already selected the path, so click on Get Shape and select the first shape, and you can see that we now have the object extruded along the arc. With the object selected, you can now go to the Modify panel, unroll the skin parameters, and adjust the shape steps and path steps. You can see what these do very quickly. If you go really low with the path steps, it becomes very abstract and you can push them up all the way, but that creates too many faces. So let's use something in the middle there, like this. One more interesting thing that you can do with the Loft object is the deformations. If you unroll that, you get different categories of deformations. Let me show you. You can find out what they do by yourself. Let me show you the twist as an example. Here you have the path. 0% along the path, 100% along the path. Right now, the twist value is 0 all the way through. If I select this last point here at 100%, and move it up to 100. This creates some very interesting geometry, which would be difficult to model by hand. The shape twists around itself along the path. Very interesting. Another possibility would be to switch back to 0 and add a key point somewhere in the middle of the path and push that up, which also gives you a very interesting shape. So as you can see, let me delete that again, you can really play around with these settings and create interesting geometry in no time. Also, you can switch these on and off using the light bulbs. One more thing about the Loft object. You can not only use one single shape along the complete path, no, you can use several shapes along the path. One criteria that should be met though is that all the shapes that you use for one Loft object have the same amount of vertices, otherwise you get strange artifacts when you transition from one shape to the other. So let me change the second shape here, just a little bit by moving some vertices to the front. And go to the Loft object again, go to the modifier, and let's go to the middle of the path. You can see if you change this value, there is a little dot moving along the path. So let's go to 50%. Click on Get Shape now with 50% selected and select the second path. Now as you can see, we start with the first profile and end with the second profile, and the transition between the two is very smooth. You could also now go to 100% and select the first shape again. So this gives you a transition from the first shape to the middle and back again. And again, this is very dynamic. If you come here into one of the shapes that you use for the Loft object and modify those, the Loft object gets updated in real time. Another important advantage. And one very last quick tip that I want to give you at the end of this shape tutorial, and this is a closely guarded secret, so don't tell anybody that you got this from me. Go to the Shapes Create panel and create text. Just click anywhere in your viewport and you get this max text. However, that's not what we're interested in, because in the properties you can not only change the text but also the font. Let's change the font here to a symbol font like Windings. And let's now just type a lowercase a. As you can see, you now get a very intricate shape without any modeling, and you could apply, for example, an extrude modifier, and you get beautiful geometry in no time. And you know the internet is full of free symbol fonts, and this can get you started and creative without any skills or knowledge. Have fun modeling!